Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Good evening and welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. We have a great show for you tonight. Gentleman here, Joshua, has some topical agents that he will talk about. There's a long history of topical cannabis products we'll discuss a little bit. John Cornett and Jan Sue are back over here ready to play some fantastic music for us. We have film clips and more fun. So if you have a question about ending adult marijuana prohibition, restoring industrial hemp, or helping medical marijuana patients, then you can call us and ask us questions here at 503-288-4442. But first, we're going to bring on, as we always do, our infamous dancing cannabis leaves.
I feel the force.
All right, we have a lot of hemp news for you tonight. United States Attorney General Eric Holder on Thursday offered the Obama administration's most forceful critique to date of U.S. mass incarceration policies at a meeting of the Western Hemisphere security ministers in Medellin, Colombia, down in South America. He also emphasized the Obama administration's efforts to scale back mandatory minimum sentencing policies. U.S. Attorney General Holder said, quote, "The path we are currently on is far from sustainable. As we speak, roughly 1 out of every 100 American adults is behind bars. Although the United States comprises just 5% of the world's population, we incarcerate almost a quarter of the world's prisoners. While few would dispute the fact that incarceration has a role to play in any comprehensive public safety strategy, it's become evident that such widespread incarceration is both inadvisable and unsustainable. It requires that we routinely spend billions of dollars on prison construction and tens of billions more on an annual basis to house those who are convicted of crimes," end quote, said the Attorney General. He went on, quote, "It carries both human and moral costs that are too much to bear, and it results in far too many Americans serving too much time in too many prisons and beyond the point of serving any good law enforcement reason," end quote. U.S. Attorney General Holder also suggested that other countries should have greater flexibility in drug control policies. He said, quote, "We must cooperate if we're to protect our respective citizens from the criminal enterprises that threaten our national and international interest, and we must acknowledge that none among us can fight this battle on our own or by implementing a one-size-fits-all approach," end quote. I have to admit, it's a strange feeling, at once wonderful and wary, when the Attorney General of the United States tells an audience of security ministers at a conference in a foreign country that there's something fundamentally wrong with incarcerating so many people in his own country. The Obama administration's rhetorical shift can be criticized as too little and too late, but its historic significance cannot be denied. Let's just hope that this new rhetoric truly translates into new policies. Holder delivered his address at the fourth meeting of ministers responsible for public security in the Americas, the biannual conference sponsored by the Organization of American States designed to promote policy coordination on the issue. And from Colorado, state-regulated businesses are to begin selling marijuana to adults on January 1st. What's being called the world's first ever marijuana retail license was issued in Central City, Colorado on Thursday, just yesterday. The recipient of the local license, Annie's, which is currently operating a medical marijuana center, still must receive its state license, Businesses in localities across Colorado are scheduled to begin selling marijuana to adults 21 and older starting January 1st, 2014. According to Mason Tvert, who led the drive in Colorado for Amendment 64 to legalize marijuana, he said, quote, Colorado's moving forward and leaving marijuana prohibition behind. For the first time in history, those who sell marijuana are receiving licenses from the state instead of rap sheets. Marijuana will be sold to adults by legitimate tax-paying businesses instead of drug cartels in the underground market. Colorado is proving to the rest of the world that marijuana can be regulated like alcohol, Tvert said. It will not be long before voters and lawmakers in other states decide to adopt similar policies. Marijuana is objectively less harmful than alcohol, and it is finally starting to be treated that way, end quote. Once again, that's Mason Tvert, who led the drive for Amendment 64. Also in Colorado, Federal and Drug Enforcement Administration and Internal Revenue Service agents, along with officers of the Denver Police Department, on Thursday morning conducted multiple raids in medical marijuana facilities in the Denver, Colorado, and Boulder, Colorado area. A statement from the U.S. Attorney's Office in Denver confirmed the ongoing raids, according to Michael Roberts at Westward. Quote, our sources tell us it's likely to continue throughout the day and involves a notable number of targets, Roberts wrote. A statement from Jeff Dornscher, spokesman for the U.S. Attorney John Walsh in Colorado, gives few details about the raids. Early reports filtering in placed a number of raids on operations between 20 and 40. According to the U.S. Attorney spokesperson in Colorado, quote, the Drug Enforcement Administration, the Internal Revenue Service's criminal investigations, and the Denver Police Department, state and local law enforcement are today executing lawfully obtained search warrants and seizure warrants, end quote. The raid locations included a couple in Boulder, Colorado, according to a law enforcement source, reports from Mitchell Baer at the Boulder Daily Camera. Here in Oregon, just how much security should Oregon's medical marijuana dispensaries be required to have in place? That was the question examined by state officials on Monday. The rules, including input from police, policymakers, and cannabis advocates, generated heated discussion among the 13-member panel, according to a report from Noel Crombie at the Oregonian newspaper. Tom Burns, who supervises the state's pharmaceutical drug program, appointed and moderated the group. All of this is happening because of the passage of Oregon's House Bill 3640, passed by the legislature earlier this year. The law formally legalizes the dispensaries which had been operating in a gray area of the law since Oregon voters approved medical marijuana back in 1998. Until HB 3460 came along, Oregon's medical marijuana dispensaries, technically illegal but tolerated in a few areas, especially around Portland, had operated mostly without official interference. After passage of the bill into law, committees started meeting in September to hammer out regulations that will govern the shops. The group's deadline for completing the rules is in December. They're expected to meet again before then. Oregon plans to start accepting applications from prospective dispensary operators starting March 3, 2014. While Amy Margolis, a Portland-based lawyer who sits on the panel, said she was concerned about proposed requirements that dispensaries that must keep a 30-day archive of video surveillance, Rob Bovet, the district attorney of Lincoln County, argued for keeping the rule, claiming security for the shops must be rigorous to satisfy federal guidelines. Attorney Margolis pointed out that neither bars nor pharmacies face such a requirement. There will be a $4,000 annual license fee for the new dispensaries. Also here in Oregon, after a panel of appointed experts can appease federal officials with a set of rules, Oregon farmers may sow a crop of industrial hemp next spring. The Committee of Agricultural Experts and state officials has been selected by the Oregon Department of Agriculture and will come together in December to establish proper procedures for hemp cultivation in Oregon. According to Jim Kramer, a market and certification official at the Department of Agriculture, he said, quote, the committee hopes to set up a program that will meet what the federal government calls a robust standard. The goal is to do so in time for planting next spring. In 2009, Senate Bill 676, spearheaded by Oregon State Senator Floyd Przansky, was passed by the Oregon legislature, and then Governor Theodore Kulongoski signed the historic bill into law. Since the passage of Oregon farmers have been hesitant to begin growing due to the fear that they'd be prosecuted by the Drug Enforcement Administration for marijuana crimes. In recent months, hemp's legal status gained momentum. The federal Justice Department said it won't prosecute cases in states such as Washington and Colorado that legalized and regulate marijuana. While awaiting clarification on hemp's legal status from the U.S. Department of Justice, the Oregon Department of Agriculture is forming the Advisory Committee on Hemp Production. The U.S. Attorney for Oregon, Amanda Marshall, at the request of Representative Earl Blumenauer of Oregon's District 13 right here in Portland, said they will take a trust but verify approach. She said, quote, "In other words, as long as the state follows through in imposing strict controls regulating marijuana-related conduct, it's less likely that any of the department's 8 enforcement priorities will be threatened and federal action will be less necessary. In any rulemaking that we do, we always want to make sure that it's going to be applicable and common sense for the actual producers and handlers," explained Lindsay Ng, Certification Development Program Manager at the Oregon Department of Agriculture, at an industrial hemp forum in Portland last week. Bruce Parkney, Director of Communications for the Department of Agriculture, said 8 or 9 people will be appointed to a rules committee, and he continued that members will include potential growers and end users, people who would use the seeds or the fiber. Russ Caro, head of the Crop and Soil Science Department at Oregon State University, will be among the committee members. Caro explained in a recent OPB Think Out Loud segment that he believes hemp in Oregon will be best grown in the Columbia Basin and eastern Oregon. Hemp News has obtained and provided links for the hemp background papers that Caro has compiled regarding hemp and its potential market, regulation, and factors for consideration in growing hemp. You can find that on our website at hemp.org/hempnews. The research and thought behind the movement toward hemp production in Oregon is swiftly expanding. Oregon State University is offering a groundbreaking course on industrial hemp. The online course, WSE 266, is being spearheaded by the College of Forestry's Department of Wood Science and Engineering. The department believes hemp is an extremely useful, renewable resource which is worthy of exploration. The course is led by hemp consultant Andrea Herman, an instructor at Oregon State University. Out of Tallahassee, Florida, survey data just released by Quinnipiac University revealed that 82% of Florida voters support reforming Florida law to allow for medicinal use of marijuana, and only 16% were opposed. This poll marks the highest level of support yet for legalizing medicinal use in Florida. Support was strongest among independents and Democrats, and of course weakest among Republicans, even though 70% of Republicans supported this. This data would suggest that if medical marijuana were put to the voters, it would be overwhelmingly approved. Floridians are still divided on their support for the legalization of marijuana for recreational use. When surveyed, 48% said they would support the legalization of personal possession for any reason, and 42% said they were opposed. Out of Maine, from the other Portland, Maine voters this month legalized adult possession of small amounts of marijuana, and now a Maine lawmaker is hoping that will provide momentum to support her third attempt to pass a bill allowing the sale and taxation of cannabis statewide in Maine. Ironically, the group behind the new Portland ordinance, as well as many medical marijuana caregivers and dispensary owners, don't want to see Portland Democrat Representative Diane Russell's bill move forward, reports Leslie Bridgers at the Portland Press-Herald. The Maine Legislative Council is scheduled to decide on Thursday if Russell's proposal should be taken up as an emergency bill in the next session, which starts in January. According to Portland, Maine City Councilor David Marshall, leader of the local Green Party, which pushed the citywide initiative to legalize marijuana, there's no sense we have an emergency on our hands, end quote. Medical Marijuana Caregivers of Maine, a trade association of people who grow and provide medicinal cannabis, also opposes the bill. I don't like that. I think they should support legalization. It will be better for patients in the long run. And in Pennsylvania, our last story tonight, a hopeful for the Democratic nomination for the governor of Pennsylvania has predicted the primary will be a referendum on reforming and legalizing marijuana law, and has endorsed cannabis legalization, saying, quote, "For a lot of people in the state of Pennsylvania, this is the top issue in their lives," end quote. John Hager is currently running fourth in a 6-person Democratic primary for the right to oppose Pennsylvania Republican Governor Tom Corbett next year, according to a report from Charlie Deitch at the Pittsburgh City paper. John Hager said, quote, "If I'm elected, I support expunging the criminal records of anyone convicted of possessing small amounts of cannabis. I don't want to arrest and lock up thousands of Pennsylvanians every year for possessing and using small amounts of marijuana. I think if people come out and vote in favor of their liberties in Maine, then we'll win the primary." So that's the end of our Hemp News segment tonight. We're going to jump over, and John Cornett and Jan Sue are back. Welcome back, folks.
Thank you very much, sir. Got a little thing we made up here on the spot, and I'm going to start it off here. Go something like this.
Very much, folks.
Thank you. Just something we made up on the spot here.
Have you named that, or?
Hey, just there's it. No. Something we made up on the spot.
All right.
Called We Made It Through.
Okay. I'd like to welcome Joshua Stewart. Welcome to the show, Joshua.
Thank you.
So you've been making a topical product, a salve. You want to tell our audience about that? You got a couple little packages of that. We'll have camera 2 close in on your label there.
Yes, sir. This is a product of Oregon Trail Natural Farms. It's the Canna Lotion. It's a topical delivery system for cannabis. It's absorbed through the skin. It treats everything from back pain, muscle spasms, arthritis. The cannabis that is infused with it, has been tested to reduce or inhibit cancer cell growth, treat anxiety or psychosis. The list of treatments is really endless.
Uh-huh. So are you making this yourself?
Yes, sir.
What can you tell us about how you're doing that?
Well, all the products are out of Eugene, Springfield area from a company called Glory Bee.
Uh-huh.
They're all organic and natural.
Uh-huh. So the cannabis is organic and the other components are organic?
Yes, sir. The cannabis is grown out at the farm. It's been tested.
Uh-huh.
We use ChemDog It's a high CBD content with a moderate THC level, so that when we infuse it into the lotion, there are medicinal properties as well as pain relief properties.
I don't know if you know about it, but there's a long history of cannabis being used as a topical agent, going back to prehistoric times, and also more recently in our pharmacopoeia. There were a lot of Johnson & Johnson topical agents, and here's one right here. It's actually a predecessor of Johnson & Johnson. Seabury & Johnson had this cannabis plaster, but they also had large mats of a cannabis resin pulp that they mix with aspirin. And here it is, Seabury & Johnson. And that's a cannabis corn plaster. But it's been used for many different things, I think, including a lot of the things that you're talking about.
Indeed. One of the goals that we wanted to achieve with this was we noticed that a lot of the delivery systems had a waxy or oily substance that was left on the skin. Most lotions are only absorbable up to 60% by the human body. That residue that you feel on your skin, that's the other 40% that your body can absorb. So the products and ingredients that we use in here are 92% absorbable. So the only thing that's left is a little bit of the emulsion wax, and that's a protection agent, and it helps retain the moisture in your skin.
I see. Well, we'll come back and talk about it in just a moment. I know we have a caller standing by. If you're out there and you have a question about ending adult marijuana prohibition, restoring industrial hemp for fuel, fiber, and food, or medicinal marijuana and how to help medical marijuana patients, and give us a call at that number there on your screen. It's 503-288-4442. We have a caller standing by. Welcome to the show, caller.
Hi.
Howdy.
I am third generation cancer, breast cancer, and I have two daughters who are getting of age, and I do have a permit, and I was wondering if I've heard there are benefits from marijuana for breast cancer, and I was wondering if there's any information you could give me about it, about marijuana and breast cancer.
You know, there's a lot of information out there. I would recommend going and do you have internet access?
Yeah.
Yeah, go to some web search engine and look up Granny Storm Crow's List, and you'll find literally hundreds of pages of citations for medical research papers on literally more than 100 different conditions. And so you can go through there and find out, you know, there are a lot of different types of breast cancer. There's genetic testing available these days for a few of the genes that are linked to breast cancer, but
I'm into that now.
It's not fully understood yet. I know people who have had breast cancer, who've had genetic testing and been told that they are lower risk than average for breast cancer. So they're looking at a few specific genes, but there are a lot of other genes that their actions haven't been determined yet. So it's still a developing process. But the United States federal government, one agency, Health and Human Services, has patented cannabis and CBD for its antioxidant and anti-tumoral effects. So on one hand, Health and Human Services says that it has medicinal applications. On the other hand, the Drug Enforcement Administration says it has no medical use whatsoever. So there are conflicting reports out there.
Oh.
I wish I could give you a little bit more specific information, but it's a very sensitive issue, and I don't want to mislead you.
Right, I appreciate that too. Well, I'm 14 years without it, so...
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I'm doing good.
Good.
Okay,
good.
well, thank you very much. I
All right.
enjoy your show.
Thanks, we're glad to do it. Thanks for watching.
Good night.
So again, if you have a question or comment for us tonight, you can call us at that number there on your screen. It's 503-288-4442. That's 503-288-4442. We have a little video clip we're going to roll, and we will be back in just a moment, right after this video clip. So stay tuned.
An Oregon congressman wants the government to make it legal for U.S. farmers to grow hemp. Today, Representative Earl Blumenauer hosted an industrial hemp forum in downtown Portland. The idea was to educate the public on the benefits of growing hemp in Oregon. Experts say American retailers are set to sell nearly $500 million worth of products containing hemp seeds and fibers every year. But because federal law classifies hemp and marijuana as the same substance, U.S. manufactured hemp products must use hemp grown in other countries. In Oregon, it's legal for farmers to grow hemp, and Blumenauer says if the federal government changes the laws, it could make way for Oregon to produce hemp for American retailers.
And we think it's going to open up a big market for Oregon farmers and more products for our consumers.
The Obama administration has said it will not prosecute marijuana crimes in states where it's legal. It's unclear if that includes hemp.
Okay, so we've got some hemp products right here. This is a hemp twine. This is hemp oil, and we put the twine into the oil, and it acts as a wick, and we have this hemp flame. Now, I really believe the main reason marijuana is illegal is because it is a viable energy source, and they made up the whole marijuana myth so it wouldn't compete with petrochemicals. It is the most productive seed oil crop, but not the low THC hemp that's allowed in Canada and might be allowed here in Europe, but higher THC hemp with big flowers has 20 times more seeds and therefore seed oil and protein. Now you have that, Joshua, let's go back to your product. What's it called again?
Cannalotion.
Cannalotion. And so how many ounces are in one of those jars?
They're 4-ounce jars.
Uh-huh. And what do they retail for?
$25.
Uh-huh. And so that's what it looks like?
Yes, sir.
And it comes in a couple different, are those fragrances that it has?
Yes, sir. This one right here is the grapefruit.
Uh-huh.
This one right here is the vanilla peppermint.
Uh-huh.
We have some seasonal smells. We have some year-long smells.
Uh-huh.
We have a strawberry cream and a lavender. Those are year-long. And then a warm vanilla sugar cookie for Christmas.
Oh, okay. So you have seasonal aromas for it, or flavors.
Yes, sir.
All right. So do you want to use some there, and do you use it very often?
Yeah, when I apply it, I use about that much. I myself, I'm a patient. I was in a wheelchair about a year ago.
Uh-huh.
And
put it right on there. And okay. So you use your own product. Well, that's, and so
Yes,
you're starting to put this in some of the dispensaries around.
yes, in Salem we work with First Choice Cannabis.
Uh-huh.
In Portland, Deluxe Farms, and I believe we're going to attend an event at the world famous Cannabis Cafe on the 9th.
Uh-huh. 9th of December?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So yeah, this stuff makes your skin feel great too. It not only just has the topical delivery system for the cannabis, but the lotion product itself is high quality.
Uh-huh. All right. We have another caller. Welcome to the show, caller. Hello, caller.
Hello?
How are you tonight?
All right, how are you guys doing?
Very well.
I was calling to see, because I've worked as a vet tech, and I've recently got into, like, equine vets and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And I was thinking, since marijuana is used in people, couldn't we do the same thing with animals for, like, pain and shit?
Well, you know, as you probably know, that I have a collection of antique medical marijuana containers, and about 20 of them are veterinary medicines. You said equine, so you mean horses.
Yeah.
So I have several things. It's Raleigh's colic remedy that was used for horses and cattle that have colic. And so that is one product that has been used historically, but cannabis medicines have been used in veterinary for veterinary applications for a long time.
Oh, and they still are?
Not so much anymore, at least not here in the United States, but not since marijuana was prohibited. But it had been used for many different veterinary needs. In fact, cannabis, you might notice that the word for dog is canine, so it was had a particularly strong effect on dogs. And so that's why we have that Latin connection with canines and cannabis.
Oh, wow, yeah, because I have a book that I read from the 1900s on like applications, and it says all that stuff. Like for equine, they use THC. For horses, cattle, I'm sure dogs. And I was just wondering if it might be a good idea to do it again.
I know a lot of people who are doing that and find it's very useful.
Oh, and it's completely legal?
No, it's not legal. That's the problem.
Okay.
It's illegal.
That's what I was calling.
And so, and none of those medicines I have are antiques. They aren't currently on the market. So, until we completely legalize it, and we're trying to do that, I'll talk about that a little bit more in just a moment, then, you could be criminally prosecuted if you don't follow the medical marijuana rules.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It is, isn't it? And that's why we have two initiatives out there right now. One is a constitutional amendment, a proposed constitutional amendment that's just 2 sentences that says that people can grow, possess, and use cannabis, and then the state can regulate it for public safety. It's very short and simple. In fact, just last week we were endorsed by the Oregon Republican Party's Liberty Caucus for that. And we have another initiative. It's a revision of last year's Measure 80 that will regulate the sale of marijuana to adults and allow people to grow their own. So we're currently circulating those petitions. The information is there on your screen. Their initiatives 21 is the constitutional amendment, 22 is the regulatory bill. We're up to about 20,000 signatures. We need 87,000 valid registered Oregon voter signatures by next July to qualify the statutory measure. We need 117,000 valid registered Oregon voter signatures by next July to qualify the constitutional amendment. So we urge you out there to help us put this important issue on the ballot. You can come by our office at 2712 Northeast Sandy Boulevard. You can call us at that number on your screen, 503-235-4606. But we need your help to put this on the ballot, and we hope you'll get involved.
Yeah, totally. Well, I guess you guys answered my question, so shake it easy.
All right. Thanks for calling.
Yep.
Have a good night. We have a couple of questions here. One is studio audience member. Go right ahead, John.
I just want to amplify a little bit on what you two were talking about there with respect to our pets.
Yeah, please.
Been helping to treat a pet over in Forest Grove who's had a huge tumor. It's down to almost nothing now. Just in the last month, I believe, treating with Rick Simpson oil.
Uh-huh.
And also know that if you go to
And that's a dog?
It's a dog, yes. Also know that if you go
How
to
does that Rick Simpson oil affect the dog?
Well, it gets us sleep a lot, you know.
Puts him to sleep?
Rests a lot, yeah. So when he wakes up, though, it doesn't have a big old giant tumor there hanging up the side of him.
Uh-huh.
So a little bit of rest,
Has
a
that
little
been
less
shrinking
tumor.
with the use of the
Yes, and we expect it to be
cannabis
fully
oil?
gone within a short period of time. So we're kind of the
Oh.
trajectory that we are on. I also wanted to let people know that if you go to procon.org, and look up medical marijuana, you'll find 105 peer-reviewed double-blind studies on the medical efficacy of cannabis or the oils for both humans and animals.
All right.
And it is quite clear on the studies that have been done by major universities, the Ivy League. The doctors who say they haven't read, they don't know of these studies, they just haven't looked.
That's right. Like I had said, thank you, John. Like I had said earlier, there are literally thousands of studies referenced in Granny Stormcrow's list. If you want to, and they're broken down by the different conditions in alphabetical order, so you can look up any condition and find lots of recent studies and back to the 70s, literally thousands of studies in Granny Stormcrow's list. We have another caller on the telephone. Welcome to the show, caller.
Hello?
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Pretty well. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. I was just sitting here watching the show on public access.
All right.
And it occurred to me that I, decided to call up the show and ask you if you could theorize on the implication of the industrialization or the reemergence of marijuana industrialization.
For fuel,
the
and
economy.
fiber, and food.
Exactly. What do you think the implication on the economy would be nationwide over a 5-year period?
I've investigated this. I think it would take about 5 years to fully start to implement, maybe as many as 10 years to see hemp fuels become predominant. But when we allow marijuana to be regulated and adults to use it, and we allow hemp oil to be produced based on which strains of cannabis produce the most seed oil and seed production, then I think we will see it take over a lot of the internal combustion engine fuel, and we'll see diesel engines running on hemp seed oil. You can do it now, only it's really expensive. And then the farmers in Canada and Europe who are allowed to cultivate it have to grow these low THC strains. And the problem with those low THC strains is that they've bred out the THC by breeding out the flowers. Of course, when they breed out the flowers, that breeds out the seed production. So we find studies on feral or wild hemp here in the United States with production reports that are 20 times higher than the seed production that is obtained in Europe and Canada today with those less than 0.2% THC plants. What they have is a tall plant with a teeny tiny bud on top. And so obviously that teeny tiny bud isn't going to make many seeds. I think my big buds can make a lot more seeds and a lot better flavor. But until marijuana is regulated and cannabis prohibition ends, it's not going to reach its full potential. But even given the fact that we're using these low THC strains, it's still cheaper to make plastic out of hemp oil today than it is to make it out of petrochemicals. So there's just not enough hemp oil out there to meet the plastic market right now, because the laws against marijuana prohibit hemp as well.
Well, what I'm really asking is what do you think the dollar and cents effect on our actual market will be? Say 5
you can
years
look at
after
Popular
this is
Science
implemented.
magazine back in 1937. They said it was $1 billion crop. Well, back then you could buy a new car for about $200. And so today we're talking about a multi-trillion-dollar crop. Energy is the world's largest industry. If it just gets a small part of the energy industry, it will be worth massive fortunes. But, paper is the 10th largest industry. Fabric is the 4th largest industry. Fabric and clothing. So it has the potential to replace a lot of synthetic products. Right now, cotton is one of the most common plant fibers used for textiles and clothing, but cotton is highly susceptible to pests, and about half of all the pesticide that's used on our planet goes on the cotton crop to stop boll weevils and other insects from eating cotton. Hemp grows so fast it doesn't really need pesticides, and so we'll wipe. And the other issue is paper. When we can replace wood-based paper with hemp paper, we won't have the huge deforestation to meet the paper industry needs. And also you can make building materials out of hemp. So we're talking a multi-trillion-dollar crop. And it's pure speculation on my part. And we won't know, though, until we actually change the law and restore hemp. And that's why we have our petitions out there to try to do that. You know, up in Washington State, their law doesn't even allow people to grow their own cannabis, no less industrial hemp. We're seeing some hemp production now in Colorado, but not on a large basis. Our initiative number 22 allows hemp to be cultivated that is the most productive hemp, our most productive cannabis to produce fuel, fiber, and food. So I designed Initiative 22, also last year's ballot measure 80, specifically to restore industrial hemp, and I think that's going to dwarf the drug market as soon as we can allow our farmers to cultivate it. Just like our own Congressman Earl Blumenauer said just a few minutes ago.
Well, I get you, definitely. But who's holding back the boom? This seems like a huge economic
The Drug
boom.
Enforcement Administration, the federal government, and the Justice Department's Drug Enforcement Administration. They're the ones that are leading the charge for marijuana prohibition in the United States and around the world. Because they realize that when we take marijuana out of the Drug Enforcement Agency's hands, 90% of their crimes are gone. They just have to enforce the laws against cocaine and heroin and things like that. And
but are there forces within private business that are holding back on this in support of government control over this? I mean, you have tobacco and alcohol and you know, gas.
Yeah, there are.
I mean, there's a
there
lot
are
of
affected industries, the petrochemical industry. You know, there are a lot of conspiracy theories about the origins of cannabis prohibition. And I believe it really was spearheaded by those affected industries. But what we've got to do is just regulate it and restore hemp for all its uses and make cannabis cheap and plentiful. When we do, hemp will be returned to its rightful place in our economy. All right.
Well, hopefully so. But what are the names of the folks that are holding it back today?
I can't name the people right off the bat, but I do know, you know, a lot of alcohol companies have felt threatened and they supported things like DARE. But what happens behind closed doors in the halls of power is, as we said, behind closed doors.
Well, I get you, brother. Keep up the good fight, and I love to see you on TV, and I really thank you for having the program tonight, and thanks for having me on.
Hey, well, thanks for calling. We appreciate it.
Have a good one.
You too. We have another little film. Oh, hold it. We have a studio audience member we're going to go to first. Go ahead, LK.
Hey, Paul. I just wanted to let everybody know that the chat tour, we had to change the name to the Cannabis Common Sense Tour.
You had...
well, we had, the board had no control over a website that was started, so we had to change the name.
So the tour that we were talking about last week was
tour.
Chat, and it's been changed to, of course, the name we like, the Cannabis Common Sense Tour. So thank you.
And we want to thank you for that, Paul. Thank you.
Hey, no problem. We have another film clip we're going to roll, and we'll be back in just a second, a little music video. Enjoy. Isn't working too well. We have a question. Well, we'll try to run that again here in just a moment, so stay tuned. But we had a question. In Colorado, cannabis is legal, but federal raids continued this week. When will the law be implemented in Colorado and Washington? So in Washington State, they'll be going into effect next summer. But in Colorado, they're already starting to issue city permits, and the state is supposed to have permits, and they're supposed to open the stores on January 1st. So if you go to Denver, it'll probably be a nice New Year's Eve party. So that's when it's going into effect. And that's a question that's coming online through our video streaming. People watch all around the world. I'm amazed how many people watch there at ustream.tv. If you've got people that you think should be watching the show, you can have them tune in live at ustream.tv, or you can see an archive of hundreds of our shows on YouTube. So I think our video is ready to roll now. We'll be back in just a moment.
This song is for Vivian McPeak, who may or may not be here. He's going to be here sometime or other. He was here yesterday. It's good to be here, to come all the way down from Seattle on I-5. Yeah, it's a long-ass drive down through Olympia, Tacoma, Centralia. You're finally hitting Vancouver, you know, and there's that, and there's the river right in front of you. And that big bridge, it says, big sign that says, "Welcome to Hempstock," with an arrow pointing over to the right, which is actually the left, if you know what I'm saying. Well, let's take our culture back. Take our culture back. Get the monkey off of your back and take our culture back. Well, now we've been here for a million years, music filling up the people's ears, and we always sang our own song until the music business came along. Well, I don't know, I could be wrong, but I ain't about to just tag along behind somebody with a bankroll hanging out, telling me what I can sing about. So let's take our culture back. Take our culture back. Get the monkey off of your back and take our culture back. Hollywood spectacle and promenade. Think of all that money just waiting to be made, and all you gotta do is go. You'll be sitting up pretty on Gangsters Row. Now it ain't smart to be misled by some Beavis and Butthead. You can have your hip Seattle slacker, just give me a good computer hack. Well, let's take our culture back. Take our culture back. WikiLeaks, take the government off your back and take our culture back. Yep. You gotta get inside to break it out. You gotta be outside to know what I'm talking about. 2 heads and a million eyes, and we can cut this thing right down to size. Now culture is a weaponry, and all our great humanity, and survival is a counterattack. So let's take our culture back. Let's take our culture back. Take our culture back. Get the monkey off of your back and take our culture back right now.
All right, that's Mr. Jim Page. He was at our Hempstock Festival last year, and his song, Take Our Culture Back. And that's what we're trying to do by legalizing marijuana. And that's why we have these 2 petitions out there, and we want to get you involved in that. We have a little poster here. We are paying about a dozen petitioners out there to gather signatures right now, but we really want to get volunteers going. Every volunteer signature you help us with is like donating $1, because that's basically what it costs to pay somebody to stand out there on the street corner and get those signatures. So please help us and get this petition on the ballot. You can go to our office there. You can see the address right under the poster at 2712 Northeast Sandy Boulevard. You can call us at 503-235-4606, or you can go to our website and print that petition out right on the internet. Print out the single signature sheet, sign it, and mail it in to us there on Sandy. So help us take our culture back and end marijuana prohibition. Help in marijuana prohibition. I like help in marijuana prohibition because it has the nifty acronym of hemp. And so we do have another phone caller, though. Welcome to the show, caller.
Hi, I was calling to wonder what your take was on why Israel is further ahead in cannabis research than the U.S., and how does Iran being able to enrich plutonium affect Israel and the world's cannabis and cancer research now?
Okay, on the first issue, Israel has a long history of cannabis research. In fact, the gentleman who discovered THC back in 1972, Raphael McCoolum, at Hebrew University in Jerusalem is the same person who discovered the body's endogenous cannabinoid system. He named, his team at Hebrew University named the endogenous cannabinoid that's like THC anandamide, from the Sanskrit word for bliss. And so the Israeli Defense Force, or the IDF, has allowed Israeli soldiers to use cannabis for post-traumatic stress for about 10 years now. And so it's a smaller country. And really the real spearhead, the people who are promoting marijuana prohibition, it's the United States government and the Drug Enforcement Administration. So it's mainly the job of the Drug Enforcement Administration. So other countries are a lot farther along than we have been, even though the breakthrough in Washington and Colorado, and we almost passed it in Oregon too, has inspired people all around the world, in Europe and in all over the world, to try to help in marijuana prohibition in their companies. And I really don't know, about the Iranian situation and enriching plutonium. The Iranians have never really ever attacked another country, so I don't see why they're that dangerous. They have a long history. Persia, the Persian Empire, existed for a long time, and they haven't attacked another country in a couple hundred years. So I'm not sure why we spend so much money pursuing them.
Yeah, because I just figured since they were going to do all that stuff, that Israel has actually stopped a lot of its research because they're all freaking out right now.
Well, the Israelis back in the 80s bombed the Iraqi nuclear production facilities. They probably had something to worry about there. But I don't know if they really have anything to worry about with the Iranians. We'll find out. But I appreciate your call.
Okay, bye.
All right. We have a number of little items I'm going to show here. Let's get camera 2 to close in on our little show and tell show here tonight. Here's an Eli Lilly. A lot of people don't realize that most major pharmaceutical houses had dozens of different cannabis products. And Eli Lilly was one. Here's a big cannabis fluid extract. Eli Lilly had about 15 different cannabis products, and so did Park Davis and most of the other major pharmaceutical houses. This is Indian cannabis fluid extract as well. This one's from Wyeth Brothers, Philadelphia. This is a cough remedy that's made with cannabis, and so is this. And this is another Eli Lilly hashish product. This is new to our collection here, a little hashish container. You with HD TV and big screens, maybe you can look at that. It's got a label. This was from a druggist in Wisconsin, circa 1910. And right next door we have the Seabury & Johnson. That's the predecessors of Johnson & Johnson. Then we jump over here. We have our hemp oil. The hemp oil is what's lighting this flame with this hemp wick. This hemp energy drink. I just like having hemp energy, cannabis energy above that. And then we've got Joshua Stewart here with his new Canna lotions. Joshua, we are down to just 4 minutes and 20 seconds left. What would you like to tell our audience about your products and how they can find out about them?
Well, if you're interested, please email me at OregonTrailNaturalFarms@yahoo.com. We will be
Say that again, a little slower.
Oregon Trail Farms.
Oregon Trail
Natural Farms.
Oregon Trail Natural Farms. Hold up your little poster there, and you can show that to
yahoo.com.
Yeah. So Oregon Trail Natural Farms at yahoo.com. Here's your logo. Okay. And do your hands feel any better since you put that on a little bit ago?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for coming on. I also just want to send a shout out to Casper Leach, our joint host. We were talking about cannabis and pet products. Casper has several dogs, and unfortunately he had to put one of them to sleep or euthanize tonight because he was getting older, a 17-year-old dog. And our condolences go out to Casper, and hope we'll have him back here next week. So once again, I want to say very quickly that we have this initiative petition campaign going on. We need your help to put this important issue on the ballot. So go to our website. If you can gather volunteer signatures, that's great. if you can contribute to help us put this on the ballot. We've got petitioners out on the street right now, and we'd appreciate your support. We're about done. Thanks for coming on, Joshua. Nice to meet you here tonight. Thank you folks for watching. We'll be back next week. This is also the 50th anniversary of the assassination of John F. Kennedy, and our thoughts go out on that tragic event as well. Thanks for watching. Tune in next week and help us restore hemp. Here's John Cornette and Jan Sue ready to play some great music.
Thank you. I was 8 years old when that happened, Paul. 8 years old when John Kennedy was born.
I was in Dallas that day, but I was only 3.
Harry was a gallant blade. Stately strode he across the plain. Now he's vanished far away. No, he'll no come back again. Oh, for him back again. Oh, for him back again. We'll give all Narcaspi's land, but he let Harry back again. When all the labor in the bed wondered are we up and left, sit me down and drink my fill, but he let Harry back again. Oh,